This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened. When a life is hanging in the balance, each moment is critical. Those rare people who know what to do in an emergency and do it without thinking of themselves are genuine heroes. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, on a special Rescue 911, we pay tribute to the many heroic men, women, and children whose true stories we have presented during the past season. We begin with the professional rescue workers. These men and women spend months and even years training to save lives. But some of the professionals we've featured have gone far beyond the call of duty, putting their own lives at risk with the hope of saving a stranger. When the Guadalupe River flooded in 1987, rescuers like Army Sergeant Keith McKenzie were rushed to the scene.
As I went down, all I could see was scared kids. They were just all over the place, and everyone was yelling, "Get me, get me."
McKenzie was lowered, knowing that if he got caught in the trees, he would be cut loose. Three lives were saved that day. On the final inspection of a new bridge, the arm of a cherry picker broke and swung upside down. The three people in its bucket were precariously stranded 175 feet above the river. Fire Captain Randy Fulford took on the risky job of trying to rappel down to them.
As I descended the boom, it became increasingly slick because of all the hydraulic fluid that had been sprayed all over it. I had a very poor footing, very poor handhold.
With his help, all three people were eventually lifted to safety.
All right, hold up. All right, let him down, see slack?
When a 13-year-old boy had been swept into the raging waters of an arroyo, fireman Ken Tiller tried to rescue him.
Ken barely stepped in so he could reach him, and the water just engulfed him and snapped the line.
Ken's in, he went in, he went in. Keep your head up, Ken, you can do it.
Ken tried to keep the boy above water, but the tremendous force of the waters was pulling them apart. Largely because of Ken's efforts, the boy survived long enough to be rescued. Michigan State Trooper David Haire's bravery and quick thinking exemplify the best of the men and women whose job it is to protect and serve. On October 3rd, 1985, he was nearly at the end of an uneventful shift when a freak accident on a road outside Northville, Michigan, changed the lives it touched forever. When a train is coming to a crossing, signals, lights, and guardrails are triggered to warn everyone to get off the tracks before hundreds of tons of steel roll through.
The result of death is much higher with these than any other type of land accident. The comparative weight of a train and a car, there's just no match. The train itself weighs as much as 200 automobiles, so the engineer actually feels nothing when he hits a car.
Around 2 in the afternoon, George and Calene Yokich were driving west on 7 Mile Road on their way to lunch. At the same time, Two runaway boxcars were heading downhill toward 7 Mile Crossing. State Trooper David Haire was driving east toward the same crossing.
You got the right to remain silent. Why don't you exercise that right? I was returning to the Northville post with a prisoner I had made an arrest for a larceny and some selling of narcotics at a high school. As I approached the tracks, there was a vehicle in front of me, lady in it that was going relatively slow. My thoughts at the time were, hurry up, because I had an hour left in my shift before I started a 4-day weekend.
There was no warning of the approaching boxcars.
I was just about to cross the tracks, and I didn't even notice or pay much attention to the vehicles approaching me coming from the other direction. All at once, I saw something as large as a house.
Check it on the... Here now.
And I remember thinking that there's no way anybody's going to be alive in that car.
Trooper David Haire sped after the runaway boxcars as Don Kelly ran toward the scene.
Boxcar came through the intersection. The blinking lights didn't flash. The gates didn't come down. I knew right away that the person who was sitting on the passenger side was going to be hurt.
2116-21. We've got a serious car train accident 7 Mile in Northville. There's still southbound on the tracks. There's 2 boxcars and 1 vehicle.
Clear 16, Northville Road, 6 Mile.
The people in the vehicle were my main concern. If anybody was alive, what kind of condition they were in, stopping the damn thing so we could get them out. The only thing I could think of was the brake wheel on the boxcar. I put my foot to the floor. My intention was not only to get ahead of the boxcars, but a 6 Mile road, I knew I could get up to the tracks relatively quickly. The bridge at 6 Mile was of great concern to me. The vehicle's not going to fit across that bridge. If it hits the bridge at any speed, I have no idea what's going to happen. If it's going to dislodge the vehicle, drop it onto the road underneath the bridge, just derail the boxcars, I have no idea. I was well ahead of the boxcars at this point. They were traveling 40 miles an hour or so when they entered the intersection, and I'm sure were slowing due to the vehicle lodged in the front. When I got into view, I could see an elderly gentleman waving out his driver's window at me. Your mind races a million miles an hour in a situation like that. I remember thinking that if I wait for the end of the second boxcar, it's obviously the safest place to board, but there may not be a brake wheel there. I elected to board between the boxcars, hoping that one car or the other would have a brake wheel. When I made contact with that handrail, it deceived me. That sucker's going a hell of a lot faster than I thought. I could tell that the driver was okay. Physically, he appeared to be in good shape. There's no massive bleeding externally or anything at that point. The passenger was critically injured. I ran back to the patrol car, radioed the post, told them that we needed emergency and rescue equipment.
Okay, clear 16. We have fire and rescue en route, and we have a unit en route from the post to back you up and take care of your prisoner.
When David had first run to the boxcars, he had left his prisoner unattended.
I knew who he was, and no major thing to find him again. So he was far from being my primary concern at that point. I couldn't see any reason to take him from the vehicle without medical assistance. just in case, you know, a collision at that speed, you got to have some kind of neck injury. I was reaching down through the windows in order to try to get vital signs on the passenger or render whatever aid I could at that point. There wasn't much I could do at that point.
Where do you hurt, sir? Where do you hurt?
He was ashen, he was in shock. There's no doubt about that. I didn't tell him anything about his wife. I didn't know what to tell him.
You got him.
I didn't see it either.
I know you didn't, sir. I didn't either, okay? I didn't see it either.
1,
Okay?
2,
Okay.
3.
Okay, sir. You're all right. Just stay right there.
In order to get the passenger out, we had to cut the roof supports on the vehicle and peel the roof somewhat off the car.
George Yokich and his wife were taken to the hospital where he was treated and released. Calene died within hours. And he and Trooper David Haire have become close friends.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dave Haire. And if that train pushed me any further, I might have went over the bridge at 6 Mile.
This guy is full of life, full of fun, full of jokes, full of the devil a lot of the time. In my opinion, it just wasn't his time. You know, you see a poor guy it's stuck in a car, and he's going sideways down the tracks, and he's not going to live a lot longer. He's not gonna. The car's being ate up. He's approaching a narrow bridge. I mean, what are you going to do? You know, you going to stand there and watch it go by and hope for the best, or going to take a shot at it, you know?
Look at that. Mamma mia.
George has a very different view of what David did.
Courageous as hell. Very courageous for what he did. And I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. Because he gave me the opportunity to really, you know, live out my life.
As parents, we try our best to protect our kids. But do we teach them enough about how to protect themselves? I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of people whose lives are in danger and the heroes, young and old, who try to help on Rescue 911. We begin in a peaceful suburban neighborhood outside Atlanta, Georgia, just after Christmas of 1989.
When I started crying and screaming, I didn't know what to do.
The pressure of saving a child, for some reason, that is a big pressure.
It was going over and over again in my mind that he was going to die.
On this Wednesday afternoon, Linda Bledsoe had a quick errand to run. She left her 10-year-old daughter, Michelle, in charge of her 3 younger kids.
Fred, you know what to do. They told Michelle just to put in a tape in the VCR for the 2 little ones so that they wouldn't be under her feet in her room. She had chores to do. Kimberly and Rufus, give me a kiss. She's very good with the kids. I don't hesitate to leave her. She's babysat for me quite often. The little ones listen to her sometimes better than they do me. Michelle, behave.
To help keep her little brother and sister entertained, Michelle decided to open one of her Christmas presents, a new videotape.
It had plastic and some cardboard at the bottom of it. I couldn't get it open, so I told Kimberly to go into the kitchen to get a butter knife. In the meantime, I had already cut it open with my nail. Rufus could throw this in the garbage. It ended up being a very sharp knife, and I just told her to go put it back.
From upstairs, 7-year-old Jessica heard her brother's screams.
What happened? He was stabbed right below the chest, and it was a deep cut.
Don't let him move.
I didn't know what to do because I was so scared. But then I calmed myself down, and I called my father.
Picked up the phone, and it was Michelle, and she said that Rufus had been stabbed. I said, you know, call 911.
When 4-year-old Kimberly accidentally stabbed her little brother in the stomach with a knife, the responsibility for what to do rested with their 10-year-old sister, Michelle.
Cab emergency 911.
Her call came into dispatcher Russell Jones.
I'm babysitting alone. He just got stabbed with a very sharp knife, and I need help. Oh, God.
Is this an apartment complex, ma'am, or a house?
No, it's a house.
It's a house? You say he got stabbed?
Excuse me?
You said he got... Ma'am, listen, I need you to talk to me and not talk to that person. Listen, you say he got stabbed?
Yes, it is a very sharp knife, and I need help. I don't know where my mother is. I called my father. He's at work, and he's on his way.
I'd only been in the 911 system for a month and a half. And so when this call came in, I didn't think I was ready for it.
Oh, God, I am so scared.
How old is he?
He is, I think 3, and he'll be 4 in February.
Okay, ma'am, keep himself down as best you can. What's your last name?
My last name is Bledsoe.
Bledsoe?
Yes.
She said one child had been stabbed by another child. So I understood that it was an accidental thing.
An ambulance already in the field was dispatched to the scene.
Okay, man, we have somebody on the way. They'll be there as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, it's getting worse.
Keep him calm, man. You gotta keep him calm. We have somebody on the way. He'll be there as soon as possible.
Stay calm, you guys. Stay calm. He'll be all right, I think.
But you can't scream at him and tell him to be calm. You gotta try to calm down so that you can help him calm down, okay?
Okay, Kimberly, go get his blanket.
Kimberly ran upstairs into his room. She knows exactly where his blanket is. Jessica just kept him company, holding his hand real tight, going, Daddy will be home as soon as he can. I was scared to death that he might die.
There's a point in the car where there's no talking, there's just screaming. I was trying to think of what would be most comforting to say to her at that point. Being able to just pick and choose the right conversation to try to get this person's blind off that emergency, unfortunately, doesn't come really easily.
Are you babysitting or something there?
Yes, I'm 10 years old. I'm so scared. Nothing has ever happened like this before.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, we have the police and the EMS on their way.
The first rescue workers to arrive were paramedics David Stevens and his partner, Kathy Moncrief.
Children were crying, extremely upset.
What happened, girl? What happened?
The feeling in the air was just all in an uproar.
He's right there in the dining room.
The emotions that are running through your mind, you have to do something quick. You've got to do something now. All of your energies are directed straight to this child to make sure this child is going to make it. Okay, Rufus, easy.
He acted afraid of us and didn't want us to touch him. It took us a minute to get on his level and get him in communication with us so that we could calm him down and, you know, treat him in a rational manner.
Officer Janetha Baines was on patrol in the area when she got the dispatch about the stabbing.
When I first looked at the wound, I looked at how open it was and how deep it was. I had to keep the other children calm because they were crying and screaming, and there was not an adult there that could have kept them under control.
Just breathe in real, real deep, all right? When we realized how bad it was, and we realized Rufus needed a children's trauma center, so we called for the helicopter.
Police officer Jay Rosdick was patrolling DeKalb County from the air when he got the call.
Our normal mission is police work, but we back up the ambulance service within the county. We know that anytime they call us, it's a life-critical situation, and so time is of utmost importance.
Level consciousness.
This was a very dangerous situation. The length of the knife, it could easily have lacerated the kidney, the aorta, the spleen, any number of organs inside the body that are real dense in blood.
Additional officers were sent to the scene to help secure a safe helicopter landing zone in the front yard.
I could look down and see the ambulance and police cars, so I knew the exact location. It was a very slow approach because there was a lot of wires, a lot of obstruction.
Within 5 minutes, the helicopter was on the scene.
Children bring an emotion out in people that is unequaled. Paramedics are just as susceptible to that as anyone else. You really have to concentrate on your job to keep from getting wrapped up in that emotion.
Rufus had already been airlifted out by the time his father and mother got home.
When I saw the police officers and everything, I wasn't scared until I walked in and saw my daughter's face and found out from my husband what happened.
My parents raised me so good that I don't know how to explain it. They raised me so good, and I'm really proud of them because without them, he'd be dead right now.
5 months later, after a successful operation, Rufus is on his way to a full recovery. Trauma surgeon Dr. Paul Parker explains.
I think Rufus is a very lucky kid in a number of ways. One, that his knife injury was not more serious and that it didn't hit his heart or a major artery in his abdomen. He's also lucky that he got medical attention very quickly, and he's got an older sister who knows how to use a telephone.
I think it's extremely important for any parent to teach their children about emergency situations. And 911's the answer.
I thought that Michelle did a really good job because she called my dad, the ambulance, and the police, and everybody.
I'm glad Rufus is okay. I think Michelle saved Rufus's life. I got her by a knife. And not better now.
I see a bond between all the kids, but probably more so between little Rufus and Michelle because they are the youngest and the oldest, and they do tend to favor each other a lot.
He's a real crazy boy, but we all love him. We'd miss him if he was gone.
Before he saved the little boy, he was a hero to me. I first met him at the University of Oklahoma. He was real nice, real nice. He would offer me tickets to go to the game. I said, no, you have enough cheerleaders there, you know. We dated for 6 months. Then we got married.
A college football star, Jerry went on to play in the NFL until a knee injury ended his career.
He was always the kind of person that would reach out to people. If anything happened, he thought he could fix it.
On Memorial Day weekend in 1984, Tulsa, Oklahoma was devastated by the Great Flood. Jerry was caught in the floodwaters, but he still managed to find a way to help someone else.
A car was floating down the street and 2 girls on it. I said, I saved one of them, but I couldn't get the other one. He said, I had her, but she was fighting me, panicking. And he said, I know she's not alive. And I said, I imagine she's not, Jerry. It wasn't your fight. You did all you could do. But that was on Jerry's mind, though. He saved another guy. His van turned over. He couldn't swim. And Jerry grabbed him and put him on top of his van.
I asked him, I says, Jerry, I said, what made you do something like that? He says, Mama, he said, if you'd have heard the cry from the people that were out there in that water.
Jerry was a hero, but the woman he could not save continued to haunt him even after he moved back to his hometown of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It was 5 years later to the day.
I was in the front yard when Jerry and the 2 little boys stopped out front and asked permission to go fishing in the rear of the house. And, of course, I said yes.
You guys ready to go? Everyone knew there was good fishing on the Stones River behind Police Lieutenant Johnny Mosby's house. The river was still swollen from recent rains. 12-year-old Pooh McFarland and Brad Logston had also decided to go fish on it.
I went over to Pooh's house, and Pooh wanted to go fishing, so I said, all right. So we went down to the river, and we were just casting out. We didn't catch anything, really.
Dwight Ogleton's family was good friends with Jerry Anderson.
I knew Jerry from church, and just one day I asked him, could we go fishing? He said, sure. We went down there. We was fishing for a while. He helped me and my cousin to put our bait on the hook. We didn't catch anything, really. And then Pooh said they catch a lot of fish over to the other side. And we walked out. We had a scooter feet across the dam. If you lifted up your foot, the current would take your foot away. About halfway, I didn't want to keep on going. I wanted to turn around, but we just kept on going. We saw this big branch coming down towards us. I just reached out my hand so he could grab it and I could pull him back. But the current was going so fast, my feet just went out from under me and I just went off. And I just swam back and got a hold of the other side of the dam. Mr. Anderson dove in upstream and swam down across the dam towards Pooh.
Dwight ran to get Lieutenant Mosby. Francis Mosby went to call for help.
I saw my husband was starting to run toward the river, so I ran inside and called 911.
Sergeant Byron Motley took her call.
The call came through on 911. It was Lieutenant Mosby's residence. Sergeant Robinson was in the dispatch room with me, so he said, well, I'll go out there. I notified all the other people I thought we might need out there, the ambulance service. And after I got all that into motion, I said, well, I may as well go out myself.
I heard screams, and I looked out and saw Mr. Mosby running to the river. And when I arrived at the river, there was a little boy fighting for his life.
Jerry Melton was terrified to see how high and rough the river was.
I kept hollering and screaming, come toward me, come toward me. And he was just fighting, and the more he paddled, the more the current took him back.
Pooh seemed to be trapped in a kind of whirlpool.
I noticed the young man wasn't moving, and it appeared that Jerry was in trouble out there also. I ran back to my police unit and immediately called the dispatcher and advised her to send the rescue squad.
Jerry Anderson had him cradled in his arms and gave him a toss, enough to get him out of the whirlpool.
Keep coming. All at once, he flipped over. It looked like come to or something. Then he began to swim out.
Are you all right? You okay? You all right?
I never knew Jerry was in trouble. He never indicated that he was in trouble. He never made any motions. He was like waiting to see that the McFarland boy was secured. After the child was secured, Jerry went under. And I thought he was going to swim out underwater. But then Jerry came back up in the same spot, and he went under again. And I watched him go down for the third time.
Officer Dale Robinson arrived within 4 minutes of the call.
I drove the car straight down to the riverbank. Lieutenant Mosby had a life jacket on and was getting ready to go out in the water himself, but he can't swim. I took off my uniform shirt, my gun belt, and my shoes, and I got the life jacket from Lieutenant Mosby, and I thought if we could get to him quick enough, we might be able to do some good. So I looked up the river, and a neighbor was coming from upriver in a canoe. I proceeded to get on out in the water to where Lieutenant Mosby directed me to where he last saw this person go under. I went under a couple times. The canoe had come up by then, and I would come up and grab the side of the canoe to get my breath. Then I'd go back under.
On my arrival, Sergeant Robinson was already in the water. I had no idea who we were going in the water after, but I really wasn't thinking about anything but saving a life.
I found out that the person that they were looking for was Jerry Anderson. Jerry's had been a good friend of mine. Knowing Jerry, you know, he would do anything he could to help anybody, especially kids. He was real interested in kids. And when I found out it was him, it was quite a shock. Sergeant Robinson, he yelled back to us on the shore, you know, that he was getting tired, that he wanted some help out there. So I was trying to make my way out there.
I honestly didn't expect to find him out there doing like I was doing, but I thought we had to try. I went down again in the same spot, and I kicked something with my foot. I went under with my left hand, and I grabbed what I'd kicked, and it was Mr. Anderson's arm. I came back up, and I pulled his arm up. It's the first time I realized that it was a grown man that I was looking for.
As soon as they got him out of the water, the paramedics began resuscitation efforts.
We wanted to go down there. We thought he was conscious and wanted to go down there and say thanks, but they wouldn't let us. Well, no, I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel good at all. I felt like it was my fault.
One of those children said the last words he said when he jumped in was, "Go call my mom." And I thought that was kind of strange, and someone did. And she came, and it was bad. When Miss Brandon got there, they restrained her, and she was kicking and screaming and hollering death calls. She was wanting to get down there.
Estelle Brandon had not been told why she was wanted down at the river that day.
I knew that they knew Jerry was dead. It's why they didn't let me go with him in the ambulance.
His mother called, and I could barely understand her. She was hollering and screaming, and she said, "I think Jerry's dead." And I couldn't even talk, and I had to beat my chest because the words wouldn't come out. Nothing would come out. I said, "Oh, Lord, how am I going to tell Delonda that her daddy is dead?"
35-year-old Jerry Anderson was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital.
Well, I had a dream about him one night, and it was like real life. You know, he just walked through the door and smiled. And it was so odd because he had on a white veil-looking shirt. And I was telling my mother about it. She said, "He's an angel. When you give up your life for another life, you go to heaven."
Jerry Anderson did not go in that water because he saw my son or some little kid that he knew in trouble. Jerry Anderson went in that water because he saw a human being in trouble. I'm glad Jerry was there. And what he's done, there's no greater sacrifice that could be made. There's no way to heap the honors on the man that really would justify what he's done.
He really didn't know us, and he still risked his life for Pooh. Thanks for diving in for my friend.
In a moment of crisis, you can make a difference. The emergency numbers for your area should be posted at every phone, and children should be taught how to use them. This series is dedicated to the men and women who put themselves at risk to save the life of a stranger. I'm William Shatner. Join me next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.